and his good wife, Mrs. Kumar, his family members who are here from Viti Levu, not just from Raki Raki but other parts of Viti Levu, the Commissioner Northern, of course, all his staff who are here, and all the other members of the community who've been invited here this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, it's actually always a very happy occasion when we have young entrepreneurs starting in Fiji, starting new businesses, in particular in areas where there is going to create competition. And that's quite fitting also this morning, because this morning earlier on, we were down at a new site where Housing Authority started a new subdivision for lots. There will be, from memory, about 160 lots that will be created on this particular subdivision. So when people buy these lots, they'll also want to build homes. So obviously they need hardware. So that level of connectivity is critically important, and that's what we've been doing as a government. It's not just doing one particular project, but doing projects and having a long-term view of things as to how all the different facets of the economy can connect, and therefore you have more economic prosperity. As a lady who did the introduction, she talked about the 9 years of growth before the pandemic. Of course, the pandemic has unfortunately put a stop to that. But as we've seen, we've also now come out of the pandemic. And I'd like to thank everybody that's got themselves vaccinated. Because as a result of being vaccinated, we're able to open up the borders. So we're able to move around, there's no lockdowns, etc. And as a result of which, of course, now the economy is bouncing back up again. We've seen growth in many areas. We're seeing more people go back to jobs, in particular the tourism sector. The tourists have started coming in. More people have more money in their pockets as people get more jobs, which means they spend more. So when they spend more, whether they buy, if the gentleman's wearing a Fiji Gold bitter t-shirt, whether they buy Fiji Gold, or whether they come and buy a tap, or whether they do a renovation to the house, or whether they buy a car, or whether they paint their house, people who spend money, and when they spend money, it requires those types of services. It requires those types of products. And so we need business to be able to respond to that. The hardware sector, ladies and gentlemen, in Fiji has been generally dominated by about 3 or 4 companies. And it is very, for us, it's very positive that here we have a young couple, a relatively young couple, only in the late 30s, early 40s, who started up a hardware business in Labasa, which means the people of Labasa have got more competition. They can choose from various hardware suppliers. It means that the consumers get better pricing. It means they get better servicing. It also means it creates jobs. Because if this business had not been set up, the people who are working here probably would not have a job working here. So obviously when people get more jobs, when there's more jobs available, there's a lot more prosperity that's brought about. I'd like to thank them sincerely. Mr. Anil Kumar and his wife, I understand they're also a construction company, for going out and venturing into this particular business, this particular sector, because it will bring about service to companies, service to individuals. As we've said before, in Fiji, the business model needs to change also. A lot of businesses in Fiji have this business approach that if they're selling a particular product, they want to have a very high margin on that one particular item, and as they say, make a kill on each sale. But what we really should be doing is having lower margin but higher turnover. So if I'll give you a hardware example, if you're bringing in a shower head from China and it lands in Fiji for $20, but you sell it to the public for $200, your margin is very high, trying to make a kill on each sale. But if you bring it in for $20, add your other expenses, if you're able to sell it for say $60, $70, you'll find more people will buy more shower heads. If you have your door knobs, your door handles, etc. A lot of people in Fiji recycle things because it's too expensive. But if you have a lower margin, you have to get a higher volume, turnover. So those are the kind of approaches we need to take, obviously. And having that level of synergy between a construction company and a hardware store obviously brings out a lot more opportunities. I would also like to thank Mr. Kumar, because he's been very persistent in getting me over to do the opening. I'd like to thank you for that. And, and I apologize I could not come here sooner. It's just that our calendars and our times could not meet. And because we were here today, we thought it would be a good opportunity. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure all of you here wish him and his business venture all the best. I'm sure you will actually provide and use him as a service provider for you. And I'd like to also say that this brings about a lot more economic growth and indeed prosperity for Labasa overall. And if we are able to, as a community, as an island, as a country, be able to collaborate a lot more with each other, look beyond our noses and think in the long term, then there will be prosperity overall for everybody. And I think that's the message I'd like to have today. Please put your hands together for Mr. Anil Kumar and his good wife. Very loudly. It's not easy to start up a business like this. You need to have the psychological strength also. It's not only about money. It's about being strong in your head and also in your heart to be able to start businesses, in particular businesses where you're going to be competing with other people. And that requires a lot of what we call tenacity and fortitude. And with that tenacity and fortitude, I'm sure both of them will do really well. And I wish you a very good afternoon.